Today, Panasonic are announcing their new LUMIX camera, the GH5 Mark II. What makes it a GH5 Mark II? Well, it says GH5 on the body and it has a little 2 underneath it in Roman numerals. I'm not going to say that it's miles different from that previous iteration of the GH5, but it does make steps towards improvement. It has the same Micro Four Thirds 20.3 megapixel sensor in there, but this time with an anti-reflective coating. What this does, it gives you a tad bit more dynamic range when you're shooting. Something else that helps with that dynamic range as well is V-Log, obviously, but if you remember back to the GH5, you would have to purchase that separately as an added feature if you wanted to unlock that for shooting in your picture profiles, but not in the Mark II. The Mark II comes with V-Log. It also comes with Cine 4K this time, which is something the GH5 did not have. The GH5S had Cine 4K, but then you were missing out on the IBIS, which is another thing that this thing is improved on over the GH5.
Now, speaking of that IBIS, Shawn is currently filming me on the GH5 Mark II, which has 6.5 stops of IBIS. Now, I've got the original GH5 here, which I'm also recording Shawn with, which has 5 stops of IBIS. So that is a decent 1.5 stops improvement there. Now, they have kept some of the things that we loved about the original GH5 the same, such as the fact that you can record in any of the modes for an unlimited length of time. You still have that anamorphic shooting that you can do, and there's no crop on any of the video modes. But they've added one new feature which is becoming really popular right now and is very important, which I'm going to hand over to Shawn to tell you all about.
The LUMIX Sync app now has the option to live stream when you're connected directly to your GH5 Mark II. So you just need to connect it via Bluetooth and have a reliable Wi-Fi signal, whether that be indoor Wi-Fi or you're hotspotting from a smartphone of some kind. And then using your iPhone or Android device, you can send a live feed directly from the GH5 Mark II out onto YouTube or Facebook, as opposed to the red recording ring that you get around your monitor when you're recording video into the camera. When you are live and streaming, you get a blue ring instead, just to give you the certainty of what it is that your camera is doing for you.
So, I sent Shawn all the way over there because I thought this shot would look quite cool. I'm also using the Rode Wireless Go 2s, which have an incredible range for recording audio, so we thought, you know, we use the best of both worlds. I don't know if this shot does look cool, I hope it does. But anyway, what I'm here to do is tell you about the sensor in the GH5 Mark II.
You appreciate it.
You really appreciate it.
Now, Micro Four Thirds sensors have some upsides and some downsides. I'll start with the downside. The downside is the fact that due to the size of the sensor, they don't let in as much light as other ones, which means that the cameras can be worse when performing in low light. But they come with massive upsides too. And these upsides are the size of the lenses are just tiny. They're really small, much smaller than any other mount. And they're also considerably cheaper. So if you're looking to not break the bank, Micro Four Thirds is a great way to go. Now, before you go and buy any of these Micro Four Thirds lenses, there's one important thing you need to know, and that's that they have a 2x crop factor. So they're basically double the focal length that it says on the tin. If you buy a 35mm Micro Four Thirds, it will be the equivalent of a 70mm on a full frame.
Now, lens-wise, what I'm shooting with right now, I've got a 50 to 200 Micro Four Thirds lens on here. Now, because it's Micro Four Thirds, what that means is that it is the full frame equivalent of a 100 to 400mm lens. Now that is just amazing for just getting those really long-reaching shots, things that are a little bit further away that you want to get zoomed in on, get a little bit closer to. When you're reaching in a little bit further, things tend to get a little bit more shaky. So having that extra image stabilization just ensures that I'm getting a nice, clear, steady image when I'm shooting video. I've got the GH5 II in its variable frame rate mode right now as well, which goes up to 180 frames per second. It does mean I've got to sacrifice my 10-bit 422 image in place for an 8-bit 4201, which I'm not entirely happy about, but hey, I mean, slow motion, it's worth it. I'm just gonna have some fun.
I've got myself a Siri Anamorphic lens here. It's their 35mm f1.8. And that's really cool because the GH5 allows you to shoot in anamorphic. Anamorphic gives you that ultra cinematic, super wide look that we're used to seeing in Hollywood movies, so it's so cool that we can get it in this camera. Now to use it, what you do is you go into your settings and you can de-squeeze the preview so that what I'm seeing in my monitor here is de-squeezed, but it won't actually de-squeeze the actual footage file. So then what you have to do is when you're in your post-edit software, you can go and de-squeeze it there as well, and then you'll get that awesome anamorphic footage.
Is it good?
Yeah.
Let's go again, one more. So, low light can be a problem when you're shooting with a Micro Four Thirds camera. However, there is a way to resolve this. You can get a 0.71 times speed booster adapter, which basically works as a magnifying glass for your sensor. And what it will do is it'll boost up your Micro Four Thirds sensor up to the equivalent of an APS-C type sensor or Super 35mm sensor if we're talking cinema cameras. Another benefit of this is that depending on which adapter you go for, you can get one which adapts your Micro Four Thirds mount to an EF mount. Now what that does is it just opens up the possibilities for you to use all the EF lenses that are out there on the market today. Like say for instance, I currently have my Sigma EF mount 18 to 35mm f1.8. With it being an f1.8, that also means that it's great for that low light conditions as well. Say like you want the benefits of the GH5 Mark II, but you've already got a ton of Canon EF mount lenses. Getting this speed booster is the perfect way to marry those two together.
We've finished shooting now with the GH5 Mark II and we just wanted to tell you what we've loved about it.
For those coming from the GH5 Mark I, what you can expect from the GH5 Mark II is that you've still got all of the features that you had from that previous iteration of this camera. You just have more bang for buck in terms of a tad bit more dynamic range, more IBIS, and more resolutions to choose from because now you've got Cine 4K. And with V-Log coming with the camera now, straight out of the box, for all those cinematic shooters, you've got all that flexibility in the grade and you don't need to spend any extra cash just to get that picture profile.
But who do we think this is targeted for? I think personally it's probably for most content creators, especially if you create videos for socials, or anybody that sees streaming as a large part of their workflow going forwards because it's so easy to do on this camera.
No, sorry mate, I don't have anything. You're gonna have to go. We've got squirrels around us.
He hasn't even used the GH5.
I don't know if it was user error or if it's because the app was in its beta phase, but I couldn't get the personal hotspotting to work, but the Wi-Fi did work. So hopefully upon release, when this camera is in your hands, the personal hotspotting part of it will be fully accessible to all you guys. But also for those streaming from home anyway, on like a desktop PC or a laptop, you can link this camera directly into your computer via a USB-C cable, and what your computer will then recognize this camera as is your webcam.
Now we've had an amazing time shooting with this camera, as some of the features in it have just been outstanding.
And having all those features just means that you can have so much fun when you're actually making films.
And with all of these amazing features that the body has, we're just so excited to see what you guys are going to create with the GH5 Mark II.
I hope this video was helpful to you guys. It's really hard to cover everything in these video reviews when it comes to all the new cameras that are coming out. So if you want to find out any more information, there is plenty of that on our store page. There is a link in the description to that.
Or of course, if you want to find out anything firsthand from us, then you can pop a comment below the video and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. And if you did enjoy the video and you want to stay up to date with the channel, then you can always subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any videos. But apart from that, I just want to say thanks for watching.
See you next time.
Cool, that was fine.
Easy.
We're pros, we're pros.